Welcome to our show. It's Tuesday. Reminder that tomorrow we'll have a special episode at around 3 o'clock on the Policy Address 2016.
That's right.
And today we again have the honor to have the presence of the founder and editor-in-chief of Harbour Times.
It is an honor to be here with you, Vincent Wong, founder of HKSOW.
Okay, today we are going to talk about the birth and death.
That's right. We've got you covered from birth to death today.
Hong Kong. And
Yeah.
I can only think of one word.
No.
Crowded.
Crowded, yes. The city is crowded. It's going to get less crowded, though, as the population starts to drop. But that's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about from birth to death.
Yeah.
Okay, first, going to be discussed in LegCo today. We are looking at the committee stage amendments of legislation concerning the advertising of sex selection services.
Oh, so it's back.
It's back. It's illegal in Hong Kong, but what they are trying to figure out now is, of course, once they make a law, everybody figures out a way around it, then they got to have another law, then they figure out another way around it, and so on and so on and so on. Right now what's happening is the government's like, no advertising sex selection services in Hong Kong. They're illegal here, but then people said, oh, well then, Taiwanese services are being advertised in Hong Kong. The government's like, oh, no, you can't do that either. They're like, okay, then we'll do this other thing. So what they're talking about today is if people are like, well, what if I have a link to sex selection services in another jurisdiction? Is that illegal? And the government has come back and said, because what if I'm writing a news story saying, oh, this is happening in other places, and I want to put in a link to it?
We have similar discussions during the copyright amendment ordinance.
That's very similar.
Yeah.
So this, again, the more laws you pass, the more laws you have to pass. This is why I'm a big fan of fewer laws. But the new law, two things that I wanted to make note of. Number one, they are now saying essentially they will be able to have a test and say, are you linking for the purposes of promoting, right? Or are you linking for any other purpose? Any other purpose, you're okay. But linking for the purposes of promoting, you're in trouble. Now, it's a little fuzzy, and a judge will have to decide if you are actually trying to be sneaky and promote.
The concept is mens rea, the intent.
The intent. Yeah. So that's one part. The second part is that there was a little thing that was in it that was saying that,
but it will be criminal if you have to look at the intent.
Yeah.
So it will be very difficult to just find them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
So the second part was that they took out a bit that said for married couples. So there's always been this bias against having reproductive technologies in Hong Kong. They've traditionally only wanted to be used by married couples and saying that unmarried individuals weren't allowed to use them. But they've stricken this out in the recent drafting. It's a very subtle change, and I'm wondering if the Hong Kong government has realized that that's actually very discriminatory, and they're going to try to move away from this bias towards saying only married people can use reproductive technologies.
Interesting.
So that's one to watch for.
Okay. That's birth. How about death?
Death. There's going to be changes to the legislation, and they're talking about the wording and when they are going to disinter somebody, pull somebody out of the ground. Pull remains out of the ground. And this is under the Chinese cemeteries ordinance.
You know the Cantonese for that, right? Well, it's one of the more difficult to pronounce Cantonese.
Okay.
Zap guat.
Zap guat.
Oh, you're good.
Nailed it. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, here's the weird part, is that this thing is the Chinese cemeteries ordinance. It goes all the way back to 1913.
Oh.
And it said so that there could be, let me see.
1913?
Aims to...
103 years ago?
103 years ago. Aims to provide persons of Chinese race with places where they can be buried with dignity. I guess if you're not Chinese, you don't get a place of dignity. You just put you in the garbage outside. No, maybe they have a different ordinance because, back then they would say, oh, Chinese this, British that, everybody else, I don't know.
Well, you have the Catholic and also the, I think you have special graveyards.
They might have different ordinance for different racial groups because back then they thought like that. Now it seems a bit, really guys?
Well, it's 100 years old.
But, exactly. But now what they're saying is that this law, it used to say that if you were going to make an announcement that you were going to dig somebody up and relocate them and you couldn't find any relatives, you had to gazette it in 2 Chinese publications.
Oh, yeah.
But now they're saying it has to be 2 Chinese and 1 English publication. Yeah. They are recognizing that the Chinese don't live in a little Chinese bubble and it needs to be in both languages because, I don't know, let's say you're the Chinese-Canadian, non-Chinese reading, great-grandchild of somebody who's going to be dug up and moved. So
I think that's a
little bit of fairness.
A
little bit of fairness. So that's a little something interesting that our government is doing well.
Okay.
I'm quite happy to give credit where credit's due.
Hope them keep doing well for tomorrow.
Yes.
If you like our episode, do remember to subscribe our YouTube channel and like and share search for Solution on Wheels, and also Harbor Times, Harbor with a U.
Yeah, Twitter account @Harbor Times with a U, like you said. Facebook, of course, LinkedIn, and now we're putting a lot more up on Reddit. So look for us on Reddit.
Okay.
On the Hong Kong subreddit.
Okay. All right.
Catch
Good
you
work,
tomorrow.
Andrew.
See ya.